Hello and welcome to the Pandaverse. I'm Elgon and I'm with
Hi guys.
Christine Gabriel, and today's guest is Penny Jones. Penny Jones is an author and a friend of ours. She's a fellow Pandamoon publishing author. She's got a new book coming out next month. It's called Suicide Souls. It's a little bit of a departure from what she's done in the past, but not totally. I read it about 2 months ago. I read a draft of it. It's a really good book. I recommend it. So, Penny, tell us a little bit about yourself and your previous books and what inspired you to write this one.
Hey, thank you for having me today. Well, my previous books I have On the Bricks. That was my first release. And that's one of those fresh out of prison, fish out of water stories. Takes place mostly in a sort of halfway house and it's full of colorful characters that remind me of back home in Arkansas. And then the next one was Cricket, which was a little bit more of a kind of an alternate history, dystopian kind of situation. And then this one, again, I've kind of shifted gears, taken this one to the afterlife. So I was inspired to write it from a weird thing that happened to me a few years ago. I lost an old boyfriend to suicide about almost 14 years now. But about a couple years later, I was taking a nap and my baby son was asleep, and I woke up because I felt like a tap on my forehead. My son was an infant at the time. There's no way it was him. There's no one else home. So I jerked awake and I could smell cigarette smoke. And my old boyfriend had been a heavy smoker. So it was just such a weird, surreal situation where I was like, it just stuck with me. I was like, how did that happen? What was it really? And out of that, Suicide Souls was born.
That's really creepy. Now I know where that one scene came from in your book.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the seed for the whole thing.
Uh, that's interesting. I really like the book. I love it actually.
Thank
Uh,
you.
one of the authors that gave you a blurb said it was Beetlejuice meets The Good Place.
Yes, that was
And
Emily
I
Ross.
think it's well beyond that. Uh, the humor it's a lot darker. I think the Good Place is kind of light and fluffy type humor,
Yeah.
and
It's a great show,
yours,
though.
It is a
yours
great
yeah,
show.
it is. Yours is really biting humor, so it's a lot more along the lines of Beetlejuice. But
Hmm.
I got the Beetlejuice vibe early on in the book, but
Yeah.
as I continued to read, it reminded me a lot more of the things I liked from your other two books about the realistic settings
Hmm.
and the character descriptions and the character interactions. Because
Hmm.
you have some fairly complex characters in this.
Hmm. Thank you.
One of them toward the end that I really liked was Juniper. What was her last name? Haskell or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Juniper is. You should write a book about Juniper.
I love that name.
Thank
That is a
you.
beautiful name.
She's obviously, I don't think I hit it at all that she was very Tammy Faye inspired.
I definitely got that vibe from her.
Yeah, but I've been lately, there's a podcast called You're Wrong About, and it talks about some of our misunderstandings from history, and especially, those of us who grew up without the internet, and not to say the internet's always right, of course, but how we would hear these stories about people and there was no way to fact check, or there was nowhere to learn more really about people if there were just certain rumors about them. And Tammy Faye was kind of one of those people who was vilified, and really actually probably a very good person who was just kind of naive and materialistic, definitely, but probably was also very kind-hearted and kind of misrepresented in the media. So I don't know. She's had been on my mind lately when I wrote Juniper.
I think most of her problem was her husband.
Yeah, I don't have anything nice to say about him. So not a good guy, not at all. No, that's a
Oh,
bad
wow.
stuff.
So you have an excerpt to read for us today?
Yes, I thought I would just kind of read part of chapter one, just to kind of put you into the world of Suicide Souls and introduce you to Naomi, one of the protagonists. We have Naomi and Luke, who are both suicide souls and trying to navigate and end up on the journey together, even though they probably both at first rather not. So there's no reason to second guess my decision to kill myself. It's too late for that. I could have tried to stick it out, taken some meds, talked to a therapist, started meditating and all that shit. But my increased self-awareness is the best thing to come out of all of this. All of this being my suicide attempt, which was completely successful because that's the kind of person I am. I was, whatever. I'm dead now, and I'm visiting my loved ones as they grieve. It's part of the process, for them, for me, for everyone. You know when someone you love commits suicide and you feel sad about it completely out of the blue, and it feels like someone just punched you in the stomach even though you were dealing with it okay just a few days before? That's part of the process. Suicide souls have to watch their friends and family grieve in order to move on. It's punishment for us, but also for our loved ones, which is shitty. And if they aren't grieving for us when we visit, we have to wait until we observe their grief before we can move on to the next loved one, until we run out of people we left behind and start the search for a vapid body to inhabit and start our new lives. It's some serious shit, I know. I'm sure finding a vapid body will be its own set of problems, or maybe it won't because most of humanity is an empty pile of garbage, but I won't know for sure until I get through the long list of loved ones. There are so many more loved ones than I had anticipated. It's a funny thing how many people love you, yet I felt so utterly alone that I thought my death would be no big deal for anyone. There are no markers of time in the afterlife, or spirit world, or purgatory or heaven or whatever. Nobody has given me a handbook to tell me the official title. I just get bits of information from my mentor, Edgar, who appears when he's not busy haunt stalking whichever Jonas brother is the hot one. There are clocks, but what good is it to know what time it is when you don't know what year you're in? The most disorienting is there is no waking up for breakfast or turning in for bed. No waking up to a new day. Though my concept of a new day had been exhausted long before I offed myself. I don't remember much about my last seconds on Earth, probably because I passed out from the booze and benzos. I sort of remember the thought process that brought me to the big sleep on my rumpled navy blue comforter. Did my mom wish that I had left the bed tidier? Well, yes, she did. I heard her say so while I waited for her to cry. The time lapse between my suicide and my arrival in the afterlife is unclear, but it doesn't really matter. I lay down in my messy bed, and the next thing I knew, I was in a waiting room. Such a cliche, right? Everywhere we go, we wait. My last boyfriend, Greg, the one who's also dead, told me that we spend about 6 months of our lives waiting at traffic lights. He used that as an excuse to stop driving and take his bike everywhere. I know that seems like a good idea. But he arrived everywhere smelling like exhaust and armpit. Unidentifiable music played in the waiting room. It sounded like the longest piano recital in the world, playing maybe a collection of hymns mixed with show tunes. There were 3 other people in the room, but none of us spoke. A handsome black man in a timeless dark suit opened a door and said, "Naomi," with the boom of a microphone. I stood and followed him to a small office. The door closed behind us without either of us touching it, like a prison door, so I've heard. "My name is Edgar." He extended his hand, and we went through the motions of shaking without actually touching. "I'll be your mentor through Grief Watch." That's how it works here. There's no actual contact, but we hang on to our routines anyway, even things like sitting and hugging. It's weird at first, but you get used to it. "Naomi," I said, even though he already knew my name. "As you may have figured out, you're dead." I looked down to my cleavage. I wore a red stripper dress and platform heels to the party. My nails were lacquered in gold. Fortunately, I took off the shoes before I killed myself, but I was still in the stripper dress. I almost never dress like that. Why did I choose to die in such a tacky dress? Part of the process, I'm afraid. You'll be able to change later. Did you read my mind? The thought filled me with a new type of terror. No, I just saw the look on your face, and I can see the tragic dress. I know it's bad, but tragic? Yes. Edgar nods his head once. Okay, listen up. We have a lot to cover. It's January, so we're at top volume. I have a lot of souls to process. First comes Grief Watch. You'll be sent from loved one to loved one to witness their grieving. Consider it afterlife voyeurism, and everyone must do it. You'll have certain tools at your disposal. Can I at least write some of this stuff down? I asked as he rattled off stuff about emitting sense and some vague shit about manipulating energy. I wanted to ask if haunting and watching were the same thing, but I was nearing overwhelm and didn't want more information. You won't need it. I'll check in with you soon. He smiled in a way that wasn't quite reassuring enough. I felt something pull at me from all directions. The room swirled into blues, reds, greens, yellows, grays, and other colors I didn't have time to identify. There was a whoosh sound, and I was in my mother's bedroom. That was where my grief watch began. I don't know how long ago that was. Thank you.
Really good. Really good.
Thanks.
Wow.
Naomi, not to spoil it or anything, but Naomi has a knack for getting people to grieve. So
Yes.
she makes it okay through,
Yeah,
through,
she's fine with it.
but
Hmm.
she did it to the extent that she probably did it a little quicker than they expected because they weren't ready for it. So
Hmm.
then she gets assigned to help a guy out who's been trying to get through his grief cycle for about 10 years.
Hmm.
Okay, so I mean, he really sucks at it.
He's very bad at it. He's
Yeah,
a little, a little too apathetic, a little too morose, and some of it comes from the regret. And it's hard for him to make people cry. And the problem is the longer you wait, the harder it is too. So he's gotten to the part where it's difficult to do the easy things to make people cry, and he's in real danger of losing any chance of trying again.
right. You're coming under the pressure of, I don't remember if you call it the Grim Reaper or not, but there's a spirit that follows you and will
Yeah,
send you to oblivion if you don't accomplish things in the right amount of time. So
yeah,
he's under the gun, and this thing's actually following him around because he's so
yeah.
close to being pulled along. So, uh,
Yeah, I call it the Death Shadow. I can't believe you remember this so well
yeah.
after. I know how much you read, Elgon. How
And
do you?
I
That's
Naomi
great.
and Luke, Naomi and
Hmm.
Luke don't hit it off real well
No.
because Luke's kind of a turd,
And
and and
she kind of is too.
yeah, Naomi's not perfect or anything, but
Hmm.
she's intelligent.
Yeah.
She knows what's going on. And Luke's just kind of like lackadaisical, and he's infatuated with her cleavage.
Yes. He does find her cleavage interesting, which really helps her get the job done. And yeah, he's been on his own a long time too, so he's excited to have some boobs in the room. It's
And
been a
there's
while.
a dynamic that evolves in the course of the book where she begins to care a little bit about him, and he begins to care a little bit about her. So there's a dynamic forming there, and
Hmm.
so there's a little bit of a romance going on in the background, but not it's definitely not a typical romance.
No.
And then you find out that there's all these politics going on in the background with the people that are managing things there, and
Yes. Always with the bureaucracy,
it's
which is
always
gonna fall.
it's very complicated, and it builds up to the last few chapters where it's a convoluted mess.
Hmm.
That's all I can tell you. It's just a convoluted mess, and you meet Juniper in there, and
Hmm. Yes. Because unfortunately, she was one of the vapid bodies they have to return to for other reasons later on, but
yeah.
and not a healthy one at that. So yeah.
So you already covered why you or how you were inspired to write this.
Yes.
Um, do you envision anything else with this storyline? Or are you going to move on to something else? Or
Historically, I don't write sequels or trilogies, series. That's the word I was looking for. That's a tough one. I've tried. I've written about half of a sequel to Cricket. I mean, no, not even to Cricket. To On the Bricks. I think did I start one for Cricket? Maybe. I just, for some reason, I can't keep them going. I would like to return to trying. I think with Suicide Souls, there is a little bit of room, I think, to go on because I left things to where, yeah, there's a little bit of a place to go, but also her story does come to a conclusion, so it doesn't have to. Yeah, I try to leave them that way where there's we can always talk about this some more, but if we don't, you're not gonna be annoyed about it. So potentially, but probably not. Kids.
Oh yeah, I have a couple of those.
you should definitely think about doing something with Juniper, though.
I like that idea a lot. I kind of, maybe she has been like a vacant body rental her whole life and doesn't know it, and so maybe that could explain some of her career ups and downs and personal life ups and downs.
That'd be an
Yeah,
interesting concept.
Yeah.
heck yeah.
Get all the people from what's they called, the New Age movement, with the people that vacate their bodies so that they could have more
Oh,
powerful spirits take over.
yeah, like the astral trajectory and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I read a lot of bizarre stuff, so that's why I write
Me
science
too.
fiction.
Hmm. I like to watch a lot of bizarre stuff too.
Yeah, me too.
Hmm.
I love
Hmm.
bizarre stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Like good
Christine and I
escapism.
talk about bizarre stuff all the time. So
We do all the time.
Mhm.
So what's next? Are you working on anything new?
So I keep starting books and wandering off. I'm just like, it's a mess. I've got so many partial manuscripts, and then I have one that's complete, but I just don't think it's going to work out anyway. You know, sometimes you get one done and you're like, you know what, I don't like this. So why should I think anybody else would like it? So I have one of those that I'm sitting on. Hopefully I can return to it and enjoy it again someday. And I don't know. I need to get back. I've had a really hard time the past year writing, just with the kids being home. I'm so used, and they're not even, I mean, they're older to where they don't need constant attention and they are pretty independent, but it's still just having someone in the house. I was so used to having, you know, like I pretty much wouldn't write during the summer or during Christmas break. I'd be like, okay, school days, I write from this time to this time. And that was my routine for years. And so I keep trying to find another spot, and I really have no excuse because they're in school. I'm not doing anything for them. I can find an hour every day, but I don't. So it's just that mental block that comes from someone being in the house.
you know, like you said, you get used to a routine when you're
Yeah.
writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of people think, and there are some authors that can do it. They pack a suitcase, they travel around, and they write books in other places. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, from hotel rooms and from
Mm-hmm.
coffee shops and bars and stuff. And I can't write that way. And
I can't either.
actually, most of the authors I know don't write that way.
Yeah.
I've tried different things, but and I can do a lot of them short term, but it's never like I can't do like long term habits that way, like by going to the library or any of that stuff.
And I
Yeah,
know,
I can't go to like a coffee shop or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
I went to a cabin once and that worked, but that was because there was nothing else to do.
Yes,
So,
and I've had that experience, and I do like that, going somewhere where I don't have any other option but just to sit and write, and that works sometimes. But then also I'll of course have a book or two with me because you know you have to have a book. So then I'll be like, I'll just read for an hour and then I'll write, and then 4 hours later it's like, oh, I didn't stop reading.
I know Nicole Aslan goes to a coffee shop or something and writes.
Mm-hmm.
I've had trouble during this time just because there's so much other stuff going on in the background that I'm aware of. And the
Yes.
worst thing I do every morning is I turn on my computer and
Mm-hmm.
and I check out what's going on in the world and what happened overnight. And being out here on the West Coast, I'm 3 hours behind the East Coast. So whatever happened in the East Coast, especially Washington D.C., I'm hearing about it. You know,
Yeah, I didn't even
already
think about
it's
that.
already going on, and you
Yes.
know it's 6 in the morning for me, and I'm like, wow, you know. So that's taken a bit to get used to, and
Mm-hmm.
all I've been doing since I came out west is just revising, you know, older stuff that I've kind of pigeonholed. And some of them are getting close to being finished, but I'm not really sure. One of them I'm trying to warp and fuse other stuff together and make it into a part 3 for Fried Windows,
Nice.
since there is a part 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's already completed. So I suppose that's the next thing I'm going to finish, but I've been working on some backstory details for the main characters in my other books.
the possibilities are endless.
The possibilities are endless, and you know, plus, you know, that's not the only thing I do. So,
Right, me neither. Yeah, that is part of it. But even if it was, I wouldn't probably for me an excuse for me right now. I'd still find another excuse. It's just, yeah, I'm hoping to get it figured out soon. I feel like I'm almost there. Like I'm thinking about stories again and plot lines and characters and for me that's such a big, well, for everyone it's such a big part of it, right? Just to even have that story brain going. So I feel like it's something's happening, and hopefully I'll get my shit together again soon.
I used to
When
get
did
a lot of inspiration from being in contact with people. And, you know,
Mhm.
I worked retail for years and years. And
Yes.
there's some very odd people that come into your store. I mean, Christine can tell you. But,
Hmm.
and
For
there's
me, that
some,
was restaurants. Yeah.
and there's some people that you know, you see, you know, frequently, maybe like
Hmm.
almost every day. And
Hmm.
you have a relationship with those people, even though you're not
Mhm.
real good friends, you know them. And they come in and they say hi to you and they ask you how things are going. And, you know, hey, you know, with me, I had a lot of people that saw me riding my bike up and down the road to get to work because that's how I got to work. That's how I commuted. So they would ask me about that sometimes. And, you know, what do you do when it rains? And I go, well, I got a rain suit, you know. I mean, I had
Hmm.
everything figured
Nice. The thing about retail and restaurants that is so great for story is that I feel like, and I say this as someone who worked in the industry, it's like we blend in to the background. People don't register that we're people. You know what I mean? It's like, so there would be these conversations right in front of you that you shouldn't be hearing, but it doesn't register with them that someone who works there listens or cares, and not that we're listening for a purpose, but you can't help but overhear important things and big conversations sometimes because they just don't really think of you as a person. And I know one night while I was bartending, a couple sat right in front of where I had to wash glasses, so I had to be right there often, and they were working out the details of the divorce and fighting, and I'm just like, I just need to wash my glasses. I was like, because I hated standing there. I felt so rude, but I'm also like, but I'm also working right now. But I'm just part of the scenery for them, right? I finally looked up at one point because they were kind of starting, it was getting loud, and I was like, just kind of looked up startled, and it kind of registered, oh wait, somebody's standing here. But it's like you hear, when you're able to become a part of the scenery like that, I feel like it is, you kind of tap into a vein that everybody taps into, and it's kind of fun. And you learn a lot about human nature.
Well, sometimes you hear fragments of conversation that put you off onto a completely different tangent than what.
And I love that. Yeah, but you can make up the rest.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times the people will have a conversation in front of you that they suddenly realize is a little bit too revealing, and then they'll move on down the aisle or whatever, or they realize, like I had a couple of people that I was friends with, especially years ago when I worked for Home Depot. I had a lot of people that came in and they knew that I was an aspiring writer. So they would talk to me about writing things, while I'm doing things in the garden shop or whatever. They would like try out ideas on me for books.
They would say, "This is what you should write." That's my favorite.
I should write about something like this. Well, why aren't you writing about it? Well, it sucks as an idea. That's why you're not writing about it. You're just trying to get rid of it because, you feel like if I can dump this off on somebody else, I can quit worrying about it.
Yes.
Never realizing that in an alternate universe, these people are saying, "Come on, write my story. I gotta make a connection with the real world." So.
I like that idea.
I think that's been tried though, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably.
Other than not writing enough, what have you been doing during COVID?
I started off doing a lot of baking and watching a lot of TV, and then you realize once it set in, right, that this was not temporary, all that kind of had to rein that in and tried to get some better habits. Still watching a lot of TV though. I've been able to work from home pretty well, and one of the best things that's come out of this is that I do a few Zooms with, when I started doing a couple of Zooms with local friends, it hits you that you can Zoom with your friends all over the place, and you could have been for ages. So I've reconnected. I lived in Washington State about 20 years back, and have been able to reconnect with some really great friends that I had there that I hadn't talked to in years. And I've Zoomed a little bit with my friends in Arkansas, and so there has been a closeness with people who are further away that I didn't feel before, which I've really enjoyed. So that's been an upside. And also, I'm not bad at cutting hair, which I didn't know. I cut both my kids' hair now, and I would have never, ever tried to do that. So I'm not horrible at the bathroom haircut. That's been fun. Yeah.
You missed your calling in life. You could have been a beautician.
I know. When I used to color my own hair for years and years, but cutting I thought was just like way too scary. And I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but it'll pass. It's fine.
I used to cut my own hair. That's one thing that I've stopped doing during COVID was shaving and.
Oh yeah, that was a good call.
I just cut my own hair too.
Nice.
Yeah.
In the back of it goes in like an awkward V with a mullet.
Because it's so straight, it makes it probably harder to get right.
I'm gonna keep the mullet.
Yeah, you should.
Fashion trend.
I mean, the first few months, I didn't visit anybody. I was just home, had groceries delivered and things like that. I'd go out for a walk in the morning because there's nobody around. My son came over and picked me up to go babysit for my grandson, but that was like 4 months after the lockdown. we were like released in the summer so that we still had to wear masks if we went to public buildings, but it was like, 105 degrees here. I don't think a virus would survive outside. So I started babysitting for my grandson again, and my son picked me up and he goes, "That's pretty impressive, Dad. You haven't gained any weight during this COVID lockdown."
Not even at the beginning. I did at the beginning. I reined it in pretty quick, but yeah, those first couple weeks.
I think I've gained weight, in the past month or so. Well, I know why, because I started buying potato chips and ice cream.
That will do it. Yeah, their studies show a direct correlation there.
I'm trying to do the right thing because I'm eating non-salted kettle chips, which are better for you, and low-fat ice cream. But when I go see a doctor, like a couple of years ago, he said, "You need to lose some weight." I said, "Okay," and he said, "Just stop eating ice cream before bed." And I went, "Wait a second, do you have my camera on my computer turned on or something?"
How did he know?
I don't know. It's just a guess, I guess.
Educated guess.
I maybe it's a thing with old people. I don't know.
I can see why.
I mean, you spend your whole life, not eating ice cream, whenever you feel like
especially
it.
before bed. Yeah.
And
Right.
then you get to the point where you're semi-retired and, you're on your own and
You can be a rebel.
you don't have anybody looking out for you and you go,
Yep.
"I'm going to eat some
No,
ice
and nobody judging you either.
Yeah.
cream."
Yeah.
Good.
No, I wouldn't eat ice cream before bed. Again, wait, it's your fault, Elgon.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. First time we met was in Chicago, C2E2, which is a strange place for a mystery author, mystery, suspense, thriller, gridlet author to meet a science fiction author, I guess.
It was driving distance for me, and I love any kind of conference and road trip and all that stuff, so I had to go, especially with all y'all being there. So
And we had the best root beer ever.
yes, those giant steins. I still have mine.
Yeah, I have mine too.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was Chris. That was the first time I met Christine too. She was
Yeah, you guys drove together, right?
yeah. I flew up to Cleveland and we drove over to Chicago from Cleveland, which was an interesting experience. But, she was like folded up in the back. Her husband was driving and I'm sitting in the shotgun. And I'm trying to tell him stories to keep him awake.
Oh, that's scary.
Christine's in the back reading a book.
You probably had to detach. I've been there where you just kind of have to be like, I can't pay attention to this driving. I'm just gonna read or close my eyes.
That was a fun weekend.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it.
Can't wait for things like that again one day.
I agree. That's been really tough.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
We were going to ask you to wear your light up skirt, for
Still have it. That's weird. I mean, I never even think about that thing. And today my daughter wanted something out of my closet and she saw it hanging there and I took it down and turned the lights on for her and stuff. Cause I was like, you can wear this sometime. And I was showing her what it looked like with the lights on. And that was just like an hour ago. It's so weird.
You dressed up like that. I didn't really dress up. I was like wearing a t-shirt with my book cover on it. David Valdez was wearing
He outdid all of us.
makeup for
Yeah.
Yeah.
David had makeup. He looked great. Yeah.
He did. Yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
One day, guys. One day.
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
We've got to do stuff like that again. We got to like go up to Toronto or something and see Elise.
You know what we need to do is we need to talk Zara into doing like a retreat somewhere in the woods with just, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That would be nice. A nice getaway.
Somewhere in Colorado or somewhere in in like the mountains in North Carolina or something.
Yeah.
Someplace like
That'd be
that.
nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
With mandatory writing time.
Mandatory writing time.
Mandatory writing time.
They have to make us do it.
You will write your book.
Get to work. Stop daydreaming. Thanks for having me, y'all. This is fun. Sorry,
It's been so long. I'm
know.
hugging you.
I know. Same here.
We have this ability to turn on our computer and connect with people, and we don't use it. I mean,
Yeah, I paid for a Zoom. I keep canceling it and then re-upping it because it's like I was doing card games for a little while with friends and I haven't done it lately, so I probably need to cancel again. But if you pay like $12 a month, you can go. It's like unlimited time and people, and so yeah, I'll pay for it for like 2 months, then I don't for 2 months. You know, kind of situation.
That's what I do with Netflix.
Exactly. Yes, it's exactly like that, right? I love this stuff. All these things available now that don't have contracts. I love it because Showtime. I do that too. I have Showtime for like 2 or 3 months a year. I just let the shows like just stock up that I like, and then I get it again, watch them all, cancel.
That's what I'm struggling with right now. I watch Discovery of Witches on AMC. So I'm like trying to talk myself into paying like the $7 to watch all of it and then cancel it.
Yes. It's great because they don't like hassle you either. You just like click a button. It's not even where you have to call anybody or anything. It's great.
Yep. Yes.
There's just so many things to watch. That's the bad part.
There's a lot of movies that, I look at them on Netflix and I go, yeah, I might watch that. And I'll get like 10 minutes into it and I'm going, no, I already know how this is going to end.
But what if you're wrong? Sometimes you're wrong, right? I like that. You're not? Sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not.
I like slide ahead if I have any question. So I'll slide ahead toward the end and I'll go, yeah, exactly. I knew it.
That happens to me sometimes, but a lot of times I have it wrong. And I like it when they trick me. I like it when there was a good red herring.
I like it too. I feel like as writers, we kind of have a disadvantage because we're like, oh, well, if
we can see the foreshadowing. Even though it'd be sometimes it's subtle, but we're like,
put that in there.
It's a great show.
Important or it's a red herring, so.
Yes, it'll be a detail that you're supposed to look over, but it's like, no, they would not have included that if it didn't mean something because it's just a throwaway detail.
Yes.
Nope. Yeah, that's true.
Unless they're just really bad writers.
And that happens too.
Yeah.
Definitely. Unfortunately, it really does.
Like the season finale of Game of Thrones.
I never watched Game of Thrones.
Playing devil's advocate for those writers, they were kind of like hanging on, waiting for him to finish another book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had to take it by the reins,
and so they had to like take over. And they're not the creator of the series, so
right.
And plus, the guy who's writing the story, the original story, sucks at writing endings too because he's writing a series. He's writing a serial. So I can explain that to people. I know. I suck at writing.
So maybe I need to stop doing these tidy endings, right? Is that like write a series?
Leave a few more threads open,
Yeah. I just hate leaving stuff open.
Or you need to go back and read like the last half of the book and say, oh, I didn't even notice that's there, but I could turn that into a hook to go into the next book. That's smart. I think that's what Laura had to do on Evening in the Yellow Wood when Sarah told her she needed to write a sequel.
That makes sense.
Because Laura had everything buttoned up. You read that book the way that it ended, it's pretty well, it's done. It's a done deal. And when she told me that she was writing a sequel, I was going,
yeah.
How are you going to recover from that? But she did a good job of it. So.
Yeah, she did. I wish I was better at that. I don't know.
And I think if you really challenge your creative mind, you're putting yourself in a box. You're confining yourself to a set of rules, like you do in life. Because there's some things in life that you can't escape. There's little problems you can't go back and edit it out. So you're having to deal with your story like it's real life. And you're having to treat it that way. So, and when you have to come up with solutions for things, you do.
That makes sense. I like that part of it. The problem solving part would probably be kind of fun.
Everything that you write in a book's a big puzzle anyway.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Aw, Penny, thanks for joining us today. I missed your face. I missed
y'all so much. I know. I need to join more of these for sure. I usually forget that they're happening, and then I get the call and I'm like in the middle of cooking, or I'm like, dang it. Again, I need to start setting an alarm for it every week. But this has been very nice.
It has. And I'm excited for your book release.
All right. Bye, you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.